Hey guys, welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast post-game show. Hope you guys are having a great Wednesday night. Very busy content creation day for me with the trading deadline. And probably after we're done with this podcast, I'll be making another in-depth video about the Detroit Pistons trading for Josh Richardson and Lindy Waters III. I'll probably be making a video right after this podcast. But we are going to get into today's game. Your Pistons played the Cleveland Cavaliers. Getting into these quarters. So Cleveland was without Donovan Mitchell. He did not play tonight, but this was still a very good basketball game. Went down to the wire. And I'm sure we'll talk about that last second shot with Darius Garland. But Cleveland came out as the aggressors in this game. And as expected, this is one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. The number one seeded Eastern Conference team are the Cavs. And they looked like a team that is going to be playing in late June. Just the way that they play basketball, move the ball side to side. The ball doesn't stick. Their bigs do a really good job of protecting the paint. And they're doing all that in the first quarter. You do have to tip your cap to the veterans tonight. Tobias Harris, Tim Hardaway Jr. stepped their game up, and they really helped the Detroit Pistons in this first quarter to carry the scoring load. Jalen Duren in foul trouble throughout the night. He gets 2 quick fouls. Stu came in, brought in some energy, blocking shots, and he scored a couple of baskets, which is always a plus with the way we use Isaiah Stewart now. More of using him down low in the post versus kind of having him out on the perimeter like we did last season. But Pistons got within this game. In the first quarter, it was tied at one point, but the Cavs kind of going like a little run to end the first quarter to get a lead of 34-28. Transitioning into the second quarter, the bench unit came in and they kept the game within reach. They kept the game anywhere from a 6 to 8 point swing, and they brought the energy. They were playing very aggressive. Had the game within 4 at one point, but the Cavs, again, towards the end of the second quarter, they surged again to give them a 9 point lead going into halftime, 65-56. The Pistons came out of halftime a lot better defensively, I will say. Asar was very active throughout the night, had multiple steals, crashing the glass, getting into the painted area, finishing with contact, which I do want to say something about Asar. Not so much the last play of the game, but like he's been getting hacked a lot, and he's not getting a whole lot of foul calls, which don't really understand. I mean, the guy damn near has to get shoulder tackled for the refs to call anything, which I don't know. Maybe, the Pistons to start getting a fair whistle. Surprise, surprise, right? THJ and Cade in the third quarter hit some, big time threes to get this game within reach. I would say the third quarter and the fourth quarter were the best brand of basketball that we saw in this game. They had this game within 3. They took the lead for maybe 25 seconds, but the Cavs got it back to end the third, 86-83. Tobias Harris did leave the game with a leg injury. Malik Beasley also injured his shoulder diving for the basketball. So there was a lot of injuries in tonight's game. Going into the fourth, the Pistons surged. They were down as much as 12 points in this fourth quarter. This was just a game where they went down, they came back, they went down, they came back. Like the fight of this basketball team is something that I think we can say is a consistent, we'll just say a gene of this team coached by JB Bickerstaff. Just the way they compete, just the way they play. You love to see it as a Piston fan. Let's talk about how things got chippy towards the end of the fourth quarter. Jared Allen decides to set a screen, and it was a pretty aggressive screen. He damn near shoved Asar almost up to half court. Things got really escalated for about a good 5 to 10 minutes. The referees did not know what to call. They went up to Secaucus to see what actually happened with that play. Jared Allen does get ejected out of this basketball game, flagrant two. Sar Thompson got a technical foul. Or I'm sorry, Tristan Thompson got a technical foul for yapping. And I felt like the energy after that play really kind of flipped the script for the Pistons. They got back into this game. They tied the game. Cade was so clutch in this fourth quarter to help this team get back into the game. Right after he had a mild ankle injury after landing on Jared Allen's ankle, he makes 6 free throws to tie this game down the stretch. He had 21 points in the fourth quarter altogether, but Darius Garland gets the ball with 12 seconds left, and Asar gambles, tries to steal the basketball instead of staying in front of him, and he hits the game-winning shot to give the Cavs a 3-point win, 118 to 115. I can't remember the last time, and I'm sure it's been a while, since the Pistons lost on game winners. We saw Trae Young hit a very deep 2-pointer, won them the basketball game. Tonight, Darius Garland hits a very deep 3-pointer to win them the basketball game. The compete level for this team is still there. There are some things they do need to clean up. I think defensively, they could be better at times. I think they're still having a difficult time of being locked in when it is game time. Because when they come out of halftime, this team is up, they're active, they're awake, but it's something about these 7 o'clock starts where they're not fully ready to play basketball. I don't know what it is. It could just be a thing where this is a young team and they're still learning how to win basketball games. The veterans throughout the season, like Tobias, THJ, and Malik, have really carried the load offensively for them to, keep the games within reach. But back-to-back losses for your Pistons. They do host the Philadelphia 76ers and the Charlotte Hornets to end the week. So 2 teams that I think that are very beatable. The Philly game is actually the Pistons' only nationally televised game this season. It's going to be on ESPN this week. So that is something I did want to point out to you guys if you weren't aware or you didn't know. The Hornets game, I believe, is a matinee game on Sunday at 3 o'clock. So 2 winnable games. If, the Pistons can split this week 2 and 2, I'll take it. Play 500 basketball on a week-to-week basis. That's kind of what they've been doing throughout the season. But we're going to open up the show to comments, questions, overall thoughts, because I'm sure you guys have a bunch, with it being February 5th. Trading deadline will end tomorrow at 3 p.m. on February 6th. So I'm just going to take a quick water break, and we'll be back to answer your guys' comments, questions, and just overall thoughts with tonight's game, and maybe some trading deadline questions you guys do have. Okay, you guys, we are back after this quick commercial break. I do want to get into some comments and questions with you guys. I saw that you left over 30 of them. If you are watching live on YouTube, if you're on the audio side, I do encourage you guys to at least come on one of these post-game podcasts if you want to. If you're just an audio listener, you just feel like listening to the podcast in the car on the way to work, I understand it. No pressure. But this is the part of the podcast where we do open up the show to the viewers that are watching live on YouTube right now. Got Johnny, one of our regulars. No shame in this loss like that. Great effort by the Pistons in the end there. I agree, Johnny. This is a Eastern Conference contender, a favorite among a lot of people. They were without Donovan Mitchell, one of their best players. But the fight in which they played with tonight, I'm proud of, because if that was last year's team, there's no way they would have tried to come back multiple times throughout the game. I counted, they were down 8 points up to 5 times this game, and they either got it within 4 or tied the basketball game. So the fight in which JB has these boys playing with is great. And I think it's entertaining for us Pistons fans to watch every night. I have a comment from Dolly. Frustrating to see Sasser play tonight. We urgently need an experienced backup point guard. Yeah, Sassers has had a few games where he's playing around 10 to 11 minutes a night. It's not really contributing too much. He did try to set up a little bit of the offense tonight, but I agree. I'll probably get into this later throughout this podcast, but the 3 guys we traded for, they're not point guards. You traded for 2 shooting guards and a athletic, bouncy defensive forward. I assume there are going to be more moves to be made. I don't think anything is set in stone yet because none of these trades are finalized. Trades break through. I think there's a lot of things that can still happen within the next 24 hours or so, you guys. But it'll be interesting to see what happens if they do address a backup point guard need. Quinn says we need Malcolm Brogdon. Preaching to the choir, my guy. I've been just calling for Malcolm Brogdon probably the past 3 months. You guys are probably sick of me mentioning his name. The Chris Middleton trade still isn't finalized either. And there's a chance that maybe Brogdon could be part of that deal as well. I know there was just another trade within the Malcolm Brogdon trade and the Kyle Kuzma trade. So I think teams are still talking with each other in terms of players are sending out, salaries they're sending out, and draft picks that will be involved in these multiple team trades. But maybe Malcolm Brogdon will be on the move. Don't know if it will be for your Detroit Pistons, though, but I'm hopeful. Jay Hart, just another WTF moment. And how are you feeling so far in the final hours of the deadline? I know bigger moves is coming, but for who? Yeah, this game was another, you're like on the edge of your seat. You're hoping the ball doesn't go in, but it does. Kind of a gamble by Asar there in the final seconds. How am I feeling with the final hours? Kind of underwhelmed. I thought we were going to address more team needs, but it's still early. All these guys could be rerouted and traded in terms of possibly a bigger deal. Nothing's finalized yet. I assume there's more moves to be made because the Pistons are over the roster limit. They currently have 15 players. So one of these guys that they traded for could be waived, or someone on the active roster could be waived as well. I don't really know who they're going to try to target. I don't think they're going out and trying to get a secondary scorer. I don't really think that's going to be the play for Trajan and the Pistons. I think they're going to take a very safe approach. I don't think they're going to make a big splash. I think they're just dipping their toe in the water, Jay Hart, and that's it. If they can get a guy that they feel comfortable with bringing in, they think they could help this team, they'll do it. But I don't think they're really going to go out there and just really use this kind of phrase. I don't think they're just going to, have a cannonball in the deep end of the pool. I think right now they're on the shallow end and they're just dipping their toe in the water, seeing what's out there. I don't think they're going out trying to make a splash. They weren't going to, try to land a Jimmy Butler or a Zach LaVine or a Kyle Kuzma for that matter. They're just looking at small, marginal role players as of right now. I really wouldn't expect anything big from this team. Trajan has preached that they're going to do it the right way. He's preached patience. So that's what I would just tell you guys. Don't go into this deadline being disappointed because we didn't get a star when they don't have the first round draft capital to do it like San Antonio did it with a De'Aaron Fox or a Zach LaVine. They just didn't have the draft capital to do it. Obviously, we're getting second round picks in these deals, but our first round pick is tied up right now. We're probably going to lose our first round pick to Minnesota this year because we've been winning so many games. But I know I rambled a little bit. I just really wouldn't expect anything big. I think they're just playing it very safe. And if they can get a reasonable player to help this roster for a playoff push, they'll probably do it. Ronald McDonald, we need a power forward bad. Got to be able to stop these bigs and need to be able to score off of more than just lobs. I think that is easier said than done. I don't really know any power forwards that are available that you could probably get for cheap. I feel like Bobby Portis, to me, is the cheapest power forward you could get, but what does Milwaukee want for Bobby Portis, right? I think that's the conversation you have to have. Like, you're not getting Lauri Markkanen because he can't be traded. And I think that's like everyone's like realistic dream target is Lauri Markkanen power forward. I feel like Bobby Portis could be a name. I don't know, like if you want to even go like a tier below a Bobby Portis, like a Kelly Olynyk reunion from Toronto, but I'm sure Pistons fans don't want that. I do agree. I think they need more size in the front court, but I don't think they're going to address all the team needs at the deadline. I think that's something that they'll look at this summer during the draft, possibly making trades and in free agency to, try to fill the holes in which this roster does currently have, because we can be honest about this team. They're much improved, but this roster has a lot of flaws that can't be addressed all at this trading deadline. I think it's something that can happen during the draft and can happen during free agency to make this roster a little bit more rounded out. Johnny has another question. Speaking about Cade, I'm glad he's having a good stretch, taking better care of the ball, often with 3 or fewer turnovers. His last 10 turnover game was against the Rockets more than 2 weeks ago. Cade has talked about this quite a bit, Johnny. And for people listening, like he's talked about how he wants to take better care of the basketball. He's very aware of the turnovers throughout the season. And I think what you're seeing, him being a little bit more aggressive scoring the basketball, which I think for this team, especially with Jaden Ivey being out, Cade has to score 30 for this team to have a realistic shot of winning. And that's just the simple truth of the matter right now. There was a video of actually Jaden Ivey doing some therapy walking in a pool yesterday. So happy for Jaden, recovering his rehabilitation. But to get back to your comment about Caden's turnovers, yeah, he's done a much better job of taking care of the basketball. But I think a reason why that is because he's looking to get his more than facilitate at times. And I'm okay with that. I'd rather Cade, have a chance to give us a chance to win, I should say. But yeah, it's good to see the turnovers number go down a little bit. Caden, can we get Cam Johnson or Sexton tomorrow, please? Those are 2 names that I had on my list, actually. If you guys did watch my interview with Hunter Patterson that we had over the weekend, I had brought up a list to him, and Cam Johnson and Colin Sexton were both in my top 10 list. And I think for Cam Johnson, I would say this. The Nets have not lowered their asking price on him whatsoever. They've been very consistent with what they want, and it's 2 first-round picks. Now, are they going to get it? I'm not sure. There's still a few hours left of this trading deadline. I don't think the Pistons have enough to get Cam Johnson without giving up significant value in terms of their young prospects, because they don't have first, but they have young players that could add in deals. And I don't think we want to have that conversation right now. I think Cam Johnson is a pipe dream at this point. Now, Colin Sexton, on the other hand, I think is obtainable. I think he's realistic. Now, what does Utah want for Colin Sexton? I'm not really entirely sure. I think Colin Sexton makes sense on this basketball team because, 1, he's played for JB Bickerstaff in the past. 2, he's a plus defender. And 3, he can set up the offense and get his when he wants to. again, it just really depends what happens when you have those conversations with Utah. And I really don't know what Utah would want. I'm sure it's a rotational player, probably some draft capital because you're dealing with Danny Ainge, but it'll be interesting to see where Colin Sexton, if he does get traded to, if it's not the Detroit Pistons. Jeremy Banks, is Tobias okay? I have no idea. I know on the broadcast they said he did hurt his calf or his leg. We'll probably get a injury report tomorrow when the Pistons do submit it. And if you guys follow me on Twitter, you'll probably see the injury report. I'll try to post it as soon as I can, but we'll get an update on Tobias. It kind of sucks that he did go out because he was having a pretty decent game. I thought. Quinn, backup ball handler. Who should it be? Now, for this team, I think as of right now, it's Marcus Sasser. I would experiment with the SAR if they're not going to make any more moves. But if you're trying to make moves, you're trying to target people. I know we've talked about Mike Conley. Don't really know what Minnesota wants to do with that. We've talked about Malcolm Brogdon. We've talked about Lonzo Ball, but he got a contract extension, 2 years. So it kind of tells you what the Bulls were getting in terms of trade value. They obviously weren't getting what they wanted. And I don't buy the we only wanted a second round pick bullshit. You can't believe everything you read online. I think they were asking for way more than a second round pick for I'm sorry, Lonzo Ball. But I honestly think that the backup point guard market, I think, is a market in which the Pistons can explore. The trades today, I don't really think they're set in stone. I think a couple of these guys could be rerouted for possibly a bigger trade at the end of the day. But it'll be interesting to see like what they want. We have a comment from NBS Hoop League talking about Bobby Portis, and he said that the Bucks are looking for a prospect and a pick for Bobby Portis. You know, for me as a fan, I don't know how other people feel about Bobby Portis. I would entertain that. I would at least have conversations with the Bucks because I've always liked him from afar. He feels like a Detroit Piston. He has that toughness. He can stretch the floor. He can play defense. Prospect and a pick, I would at least entertain it. No one in Milwaukee, they probably want a first. They probably want a pretty good prospect. But, I mean, maybe they can be talked down a little bit in terms of asking price. Maybe you can get away with a few seconds and maybe a prospect on this team that the Pistons really aren't that invested in, or they just feel like there's a lot of overlap at the position that they currently have. If you want to kind of talk about forwards on this team, they do have quite a bit of forwards. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if he does get traded or he doesn't. But that's a guy that I've always like admired from afar. Got a comment from Bravo. Do you expect us to upgrade? Sounds like we are set with a bunch of second-round picks. I think 4 or 5 second-round picks could meet a trade up to get a late first-round pick. So, lots to unpack here. Do I expect us to upgrade? I don't think it's off the table, Bravo. I think when you look at it, this team could use upgrades at the backup guard position, backup point guard position. They could use some upgrades at the backup power forward position. Could they use those second-round picks to get a player to help this team at a backup point guard position? Sure. Could they use those picks to trade up to get into the late first round? Absolutely. If there's a player in this draft that Trajan Langdon and the Pistons like, I wouldn't rule it out. I think we've seen it time and time again of teams, they'll stockpile these second round picks at the deadline, and come draft time, they're trading 3, 4, 5 first round picks to get into the late to the mid first round. So, acquiring second round picks, I think sometimes Pistons fans kind of roll their eyes at kind of the process of that. But you have to remember, Pistons legend Sadiq Bey got traded for 5 second-round picks in that James Wiseman deal. Like, second-round picks are valuable. They can get you a role player. They can get you a rotational player, or you could use them to possibly trade up into the mid to late first round. Ethan never wanted to see a guy get injured, but if Tobias is out for a bit, that will give Holland more time and potentially get Klitman on the floor before garbage time. Great analysis, Ethan. I agree. You don't want to see a player of Tobias's caliber go down because he's been very big for this team. I would agree with you in one breath. I think you'd probably see more Simone Fontecchio minutes and more Bobby Klitman minutes. I think where Holland is slated at in the rotation right now, it's backup small forward backing up Asar. So I think if it was JB, he would probably switch Simone into that starting lineup at power forward, and then you would have Bobby Klitman backing him up as a reserve backup power forward. But it'll be really interesting to see like what happens with Tobias, and if he is injured for a longer period of time, you could see more minutes for Bobby Klitman. Organic Lindo. Ingram used to be one of my favorite players, but it seems to a lack of a desired play, whether he's healthy or just nicked up. I don't honestly believe he's injured. I think it's just a ploy to get paid, personally. Organic Lindo. Sounds like Atlanta is all in as long as it is the same amount of like intel you hear the Hawks and the Raptors are interested in a Brandon Ingram, but I don't think the Pistons are going to be suitors. I've talked about it ad nauseum. If I got to hear his name one more time, I'm going to snap. Like, I really am. I'm just kind of out on the Brandon Ingram stuff. Vito, do you see us trading Sasser and Moore? I could see I could see one of those players getting waived before they get traded. Because you have a lot of overlap right now with the guard position with Josh Richardson and Waters, and then you got Malik and Tim. So it's kind of like, okay, what are they doing? I think if somewhere to get waived, it may be Wendell Moore, just because he doesn't get a whole lot of playing time, and he was kind of a throw-in player for the Bobby Klitman trade on draft night. But I don't really think Marcus Sasser has any type of significant trade value in which like you guys would probably be happy with, and I'm sure Trajan Langdon and the Pistons front office know that as well. That's why they're in the position that they're in. But I'd be very surprised if Marcus Sasser was moved. Comment from Quinn. Tech got to go. Trade him. Sasser more for one good guy. Yeah, Fontecchio has definitely struggled this year. I'm just going to account it with his surgery he had in the offseason because he's not been the same player since that surgery. Sasser and Wendell Moore for one good guy. I don't really know what a Wendell Moore and a Marcus Sasser could get you right now. Probably not a whole lot. I think that's why they're still on the roster, because if they had any sort of significant trade value, the Pistons probably would have pulled the trigger on that. That just kind of tells you a lot of these players on this roster, probably outside of Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson, and Ron Holland, don't really have a whole lot of trading value. I mean, you look at the veterans, like I'm sure Malik has a whole bunch of suitors from championship contenders wanting to trade for him, but he's made it known he wants to stay here in Detroit. He likes it here. He likes playing for the Detroit Pistons, but I think where the Pistons are at, they're going to be very cautious and careful of what moves they make, because going and making a big splash could really handicap your team in terms of what possible moves you can make this summer. And you want to have a bench. You don't want to be maxed out on 2 guys and have no bench whatsoever. I honestly think that I wouldn't really expect too much craziness from the Pistons. I'll do one more comment from Bravo. Says, what are my thoughts on trading for Keegan Murray if he's available? They don't have guards left, as they could use a guard like Beasley. I feel with the Kings, their stock on Keegan Murray hasn't dwindled whatsoever. But I do agree with you. If we just want to, have a fun conversation, like, would the Kings be interested in Malik Beasley? Probably. Um, the Sacramento Kings are literally the 2021 Chicago Bulls. Like, they have Zach LaVine, they have DeMar DeRozan. Like, it's a reunion over there, right? I don't think the Kings would move off of Keegan Murray for Malik Beasley. That's a guy that was a top 5 draft pick. They probably want someone in return that's the same type of role player, or if not better than a Keegan Murray. Not saying Malik Beasley is not worth the Keegan Murray. I think Malik Beasley has played his ass off. Like, I honestly think Malik Beasley could easily get a 10 to $16 million payday in this offseason, not just from the Detroit Pistons, but from other NBA teams that possibly have cap space this summer. But appreciate the question, Bravo. I'm going to wrap this podcast up. I'm going to take some time and do some more research on Josh Richardson and Waters and that 4-team trade with the Pistons and Jimmy Butler. I'll probably put out a video later tonight, but appreciate all of you guys watching live right now. We've got about 80 of you. If you can, on your way out, make sure to hit that like button. If you're an audio listener, make sure to give us a 5-star review wherever you do get your podcast. But until next time, you guys, go Pistons. Peace.